Hey everybody, Movie Review Next Door here, and I'm back with another review. And this time, I am finishing off the Saw series for now with Saw X. Oop, just, just the color back. This is a horror thriller film directed by Kevin Grutert from 2023, and it stars Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, Sinev Makode Lund, Stephen Brand, and Costas Mandylor. In this film, between the events of Saw and Saw 2, a sick and desperate John Kramer travels to Mexico City for a risky and experimental medical procedure in hopes of a miracle cure for his cancer, only to discover that the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. Armed with a newfound purpose, the infamous serial killer returns to his work, turning the tables on the con artists in his signature visceral way through devious, deranged, and ingenious traps. So, what did I think of Saw X? Well, I wasn't expecting a ton. I will say that I am happy with the return of this director, Kevin Grutert, because I think he really understands what these films should be. He made what was my favorite sequel, Saw 6. Um, and I think he's really outdone himself here. In fact, I think this is the best film of the series. Not joking. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not leading anybody on. I'm not just trying to get clicks. I'm serious. I had so much fucking fun with this movie. And in order to truly talk about what makes it so interesting, well, I mean, I'm going to make this a spoiler free video. Fuck it. I'm going to talk about as much as I can without spoiling the film. Um, this, yeah, it's legitimately my favorite in the series. It's not slow, it gets to the point. There's characters that you care about. Um, there's some really interesting traps, and the traps aren't even the biggest part of the movie, and I'll get to that. But yeah, I loved the experience of this film, and I am so glad that it turned out this great. The reviews were right. Uh, what did the cast? Excuse me. It is 3:11 a.m. here. Tobin Bell plays John Kramer. He is excellent as always. This is the film with the most footage, with Tobin Bell in it the most. He is our main character, and I am going to admit right now, I was rooting for him. I'm rooting for this old bastard because you know what? Nobody should be put in the situation he's put in. I'm not going to say that all of his actions in the films are justified or that he's some type of hero. I'm not going to say that. But it's kind of an instance like in Orphan First Kill, where I rooted for the bad guy of the previous film or previous films because of the situation, because it's very situational. But yeah, I think I think Tobin Bell did an amazing job here. I hope if there is another movie, he comes back. I hope they continue this type of thing. Maybe the prequel that we were promised when we got Spiral. Um, Shawnee Smith returns as Amanda Young. Um, uh, I think this is her best performance since the first film because her in the second film, she wasn't bad. She was good in the second film, but nowhere near as impactful as her scene in the first Saw was. And in the third one, it went between and uh pretty bad. Um, I think it was just the direction. Darren Lynn Bousman is not that good of a director for actors. Even though Lyric Bent in the fourth one, I think, did a pretty good job. But she does the best job she has since the first film, I think, acting wise. I think her character is very interesting. I liked seeing more of this character before she became like the crazy bitch she did in the third film. And yeah, I find her to be a very intriguing character. Um, There's certain things that happen throughout the film regarding her character that I thought were very interesting. Um, yeah, I like her. Synnøve Makori Lund. I don't know how to say her name. Um, apparently apparently she is a actress, writer, journalist, and film critic. I don't really know her. She's apparently in Headhunters and The Girl in the Spider's Web. Um, she plays Cecilia Peterson. She's this daughter of this doctor who apparently can do all of these like brain cancer removal things. She does a good job. The film doesn't focus on her a ton, but it focuses on her enough that she feels like a character and not just a slab of meat that's there to die. Um, and yeah, I liked finding out different things about her character later on that I won't spoil. Stephen Brand plays Parker Sears. He is one of the patients of this woman. Um, he did a good job. He comes into play a bit more in during the trap section of the movie. Um, and Costas Mandylor is Hoffman. He is a cameo at the end of the movie. It's not a spoiler, but I mean, they reference it near the beginning of the movie. Jigsaw calling the detective, John calling the detective, and I was like, oh, wow, is he going to return? And I am so glad he did. Even though it was for a small cameo, I actually was very excited to see him return because I love him. But yeah, this film, this is what I think the Saw film should do from now on. Focus on interesting characters, interesting traps. Focus more on John Kramer because John Kramer is the most interesting part of this entire series. And the films that focus more on him are some of my more favorite ones. Because even though I didn't think Saw 2 was nearly as good as the first one, I loved that Tobin Bell was in a lot of the film. He has a lot of screen time in that film. And um yeah, I like that he basically becomes our protagonist in this film. It's a bit of a role reversal. I like seeing this. It's something different that's not just different to be different. Because this, to be honest, John Kramer is kind of a tragic villain. Where, yes, he's killing people, but the reason he's killing people is something that he couldn't control. It's not his fault that he got cancer that's inoperable. It's not his fault that, well, I mean, he didn't have to try to commit suicide, um, which is revealed, I think, in the second film that he tried to do that, and then he lived, and then that gave him his newfound purpose in life. Um, but the way this film does it, where this film actively wants you to root for John Kramer, and given what he's gone through and what he deals with in this film, I have no fucking remorse for the people that are put in these traps. And I think that's what the filmmakers' intents were, and some people might be put off by that. Some people will be like, no, it's senseless murder. These people are scumbags. Not just scumbags, they are effectively murderers themselves because of what they do, giving false hope to people like this. I think this is a movie that a lot of people might need. If you can stomach the gore, which this film is very gory, I don't know if it's as gory as like Six. It was really gory. I'm glad that they didn't hold back on the violence like they did with fucking Spiral and Jigsaw, because Spiral and Jigsaw felt so neutered compared to this. All of the CGI that they had involved in it just really pissed me off. I hate those movies so much. But this film is a return to the mostly practical effects, which there's only CG I noticed when it's needed, where there's like a trap where somebody's eyeballs get sucked out. And for something like that, you can't exactly like make it look as real as possible without using CG in that instance. You could use a fake head, but a lot of people are good at spotting stuff like that. But Overall, I am very satisfied with these traps. These traps are simple but effective. They kind of mirror more the traps in the first film and the second film than they do the later films because it takes place in between those. After Amanda has been recruited, of course. I think this film is insinuating that this is the first time Amanda has seen John do his work, which would explain certain things that happen in the film that I did actually find interesting. Um, but yeah, this film goes into directions I didn't think it would. Um, because already that is something that if you can't even get behind these films and what the main purpose of them is, which is um, deliver a thrilling story, have some gore for the gore hounds, interesting traps, and I mean, at least for the first seven movies, because eight and nine didn't do that, a very complex interwoven story with tons of twists and turns that you never see coming, which I think the first seven films, even though I'm not a fan of three and I thought four was eh, I think the first seven films did that well. But here's where I really like what this film does. This film strips away the entire cop plot. There is no cop plot. There is no like sidelining cop plot with people like on their way to the site. There's no there's no like random person like running against the clock to save these people. And I think that makes this film the most like personal of the Saw films, especially for John Kramer. Because most of the movies were like, oh, we got to catch John Kramer. How is he killing people? He's not alive. He must have an accomplice. And it just got kind of annoying. Even though I have liked some of the cop plots, I kind of wished that the characters got a bit more to do. In Saw 6, even though that was my favorite sequel, it's my second favorite sequel. Um, I still wanted a bit more character development for William Easton, I think his name was. Um, even though he's like I think my favorite um character that's ever been in the Traps. Um, but yeah, the whole thing with the whole things with Jigsaw in this film. Just I'm sorry, I'm going everywhere. What I'm trying to say, I'm having so much trouble lately. What I'm trying to say is that in this film, they make you actively root for John Kramer, at least for me and a lot of other people. And it's an interesting direction to go because most of these films, it's like, oh, John's the villain. No, he's not. He's an anti hero. In this film, they don't try to cram in a bunch of bullshit to get it barely to feature length. This film flies the fuck by. It is almost 2 hours long. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh shit, it's going to be another Saw 3 situation. It's going to be like way too long on the traps. The traps are going to take like 15 minutes a piece, and a character's just going to stay in there and let them die. And I'm so happy to say that that's not what happens. This film is very thrilling. I actually I watched it while I was in like a voice call on on a Discord server I'm in, and everybody was wondering if I was okay because I don't usually like get all like reactive with horror films. There are some traps in this that are pretty fucking brutal. Um and again, it's nice to see that they didn't try to like neuter the violence like they did with Spiral, where a lot of the traps in Spiral were like cutting away from the violence, if anything, and it just kind of felt like really like you're trying to make a gross, disturbing horror film, and you're not even going to show the gross and disturbing part. Like it's kind of what people come here for, and Kevin Gruder, the director, knows what people are here for. They're here for John Kramer because Tobin Bell is the fucking man. They're here for Amanda. They're here for um what's his freaking name again? They're here for Hoffman at the end. They're here to clap in the theater, which I would have clapped in the theater if I was in the theater watching this. Um, the frickin' uh, well, they're here for the plot, which a lot of the Saw films, even though people will say like they're just torture porn or whatever, this film has a very interesting plot. Saw 6 has an interesting plot. The first seven Saws have interesting plots, even the ones I don't like. Um, and this continues that, even though it doesn't continue the like soap opera storytelling, and I'm kind of happy for that now because the first seven films are kind of their own thing. Saw 8 and Saw 9 or Jigsaw and Spiral don't really count for me as Saw films because they barely feel like them. Um, but this feels like a Saw fans movie. If you are a fan of the Saw series and you want a film that strictly focuses on John Kramer and Amanda and the proteges, then this is your movie. If you want a film with characters that you're genuinely thinking, are they going to get out of the trap? Are they not? If you want the thrills of your favorite Saw movies, they are here. And again, like I said, this is my favorite. I had so much fun with it. Maybe if I watch it again, I won't like it as much, but I was ready to hate this. I was ready. I was ready to be disappointed. And I'm not saying I wanted to be disappointed. That's a different thing. I went in with lower expectations and my expectations heightened a little bit when I saw Kevin Gruder directed it. Kevin Gruder really does understand what makes these films what they are, what makes them so iconic. He understands the editing. This film brings back the editing that wasn't in Spiral or Jigsaw that I actually find makes the movie a bit more interesting and adds to the franticness of the thrills and the traps and all that. Um, you have Charlie Clouser on top fucking form here. It's not one of his best scores in the series, but it's really fucking good compared to Spiral and Jigsaw. Um, and here's the thing, this film is written by um what are their names? I have to find their names because yeah, Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger, who wrote Jigsaw and Spiral. Now, I thought the writing in both of those was one of the worst parts of them. The writing here is actually really good. And this film really understands what someone going into this who is either a horror movie fan, or B, a fan of the Saw series is looking for. They understood the pacing, and again, this is like 30 minutes longer than Jigsaw and Spiral, and it's got a better pace, it's got better gore, it's got a better storyline, better acting, just better everything than those two piles of shit. And yeah, I'm super happy that I supported this film. I don't normally support big budget films. I don't usually rent a lot of new movies. I did rent this for full price because I love the series, even with its faults. And yeah, I hope that if they do choose to continue the series, that they bring back Tobin Bell and keep him in the series until they can't any longer. If it does start to affect his health, of course, I'll retract that statement. If he gets aphasia like Bruce Willis, of course, I want what's best for him. He seems like a cool guy. So does Shawnee Smith. And I just hope for the best for all of them. But for now, I hope that he can do at least one more movie because this was fucking sick. I loved it. I'm not even joking. I loved it. I'm not paid to say this. I am simply my own human being, and I was thoroughly entertained by it. So there. Uh, that was my review of Saw X. If you enjoyed that review, comment down below, and if you have a film you want me to watch, let me know that in the comments as well. And movie reviewer next door.